Alright, as promised in the last video, in video number 4 now we're going to look at how you can create more complex shapes just by using the ones you had originally. We're getting closer and closer to actually creating your own letter forms. I know in this project you have to trace over some photos you've taken to create the vector versions of those letter forms that you've made. This is all leading up to this. You just need to know the basics in order to be able to work with the program effectively. Using the techniques that I'm about to show in this video, you'll be able to create something like this. I guess, what would you call a spanner shape here? So this is made out of a couple of basic shapes which have then been used to construct a more complex one. So let's have a look at this technique and how it works. One good way to sort of wrap your head around this is to just start with, let's say, 2 circles. So I'm going to get one, and we'll get another, and we'll have them overlapping a bit, like so. I'm just going to make these different colors as well, so you can see what we're doing. So I've got 2 circles here. The one I created second is on top of the one I created first, and you can see I've got different colors there to help me organize those. By the way, if you do need to change order of objects for whatever reason, like you might want one behind the other, one in front of the other, like so, you can use your object and arrange menu to do that. You can see there's the option to bring forward one object, send backward one object, or bring to front and send to back. So that's object and arrange. It will affect whichever object you have selected. You can also do that by clicking on an object and then right-clicking, and you should see arrange pops up there as well. I've gotten to the point where I prefer to use the keyboard shortcuts to control that. In that case, command and left square bracket is to move backwards. Command and right square bracket is to bring forwards. Anyway, we've got those 2 objects selected. There's a number of different shapes we can create based on how these 2 overlap. You can already see there we have kind of like this crescent moon shape here, or we can make the opposite of that on this side. There's also the shape where those 2 overlap each other as well that could be created. So you can see there's a number of possible shape areas in there, and we can access all of those. Now for this to work, you'll need to make sure that both objects are selected. So I'm going to grab both of those just by clicking in an empty part of the screen and dragging. I'm using my selection tool, black arrow, keyboard shortcut V, by the way. Another option you have is you can click on one object and hold down Shift and click on another, and that will select both of them as well. But for this process to work, you need to have more than one object selected, and they do need to be overlapping or touching in some way, otherwise you wouldn't notice any effect. Now to start constructing a more complex shape out of these 2 basic ones, what you're looking for is a tool called your Shape Builder. In your toolbar, it could be in a different place depending on how you've got it arranged. It's a little bit further down. It kind of looks like a snowman that's been knocked onto its side, and there's an arrow sticking into its gut. But yeah, just look for the Shape Builder there. If you can't find it, the keyboard shortcut is Shift M for Shape Builder. So when you get your Shape Builder tool, Shift M, or find it in the toolbar, and you have those 2 overlapping objects selected, your Shape Builder tool now will give you access to those different shape areas that could be formed by those 2 objects. Now the default mode of your Shape Builder is to add things together. So you can click in one area and hold your mouse button down, and you see it lets you draw a little line here. And if I make that line overlap all 3 of those shape areas, it's going to add all of those together. So you see I get a shape which is created by joining those areas together. So now if I was to use my selection tool, this is all treated as one object. You've got some new points here based on where they overlap, and you can modify that like any other shape. Now I'm just going to press Command Z to undo that, so I've got my 2 shapes back again. And then Shift M, grab our Shape Builder. So yeah, again, this wants to add. So if you click in an area and drag over some other shape areas, you will add things together. Undo. You'll also want to know how to subtract. You want to cut shapes out of other shapes. So it's the same tool. You're still working with the Shape Builder. but you simply hold down Option. It's a bit hard to see on screen, but if you look very closely at your Shape Builder cursor, you'll notice that when you hold down Option, it goes from an arrow with a plus to an arrow with a minus. So if I hold down Option, I can click on an area, and you can see that removes it. Or alternatively, I can hold down Option, click and drag between multiple areas, and it removes both of those. So you can see that's how I get that crescent moon shape there. It's simply one circle on top of the other. And then you get your Shape Builder and hold down Option to remove some of those shapes. And then you end up with the shape that you require. Let's undo that. We could go the other way, hold down Option, cut those shapes. You can see I get a crescent moon in the other direction. I could hold down Option and just remove the shape in between, and then you get those two crescent moons either side. So yeah, lots of options there. It's been mentioned to me before that you could just draw two circles, and you could make one white and just put it over the top, and you still get a crescent moon shape there, or at least what looks like one. So you don't have to go through all of the trouble of using the Shape Builder to subtract that area to get a crescent moon shape. Now that sounds fine, but you're not always going to be working with a white background. So what happens if you change your mind later on? You decide to put a color behind it. Well, you've got that big white circle there. So if you instead cut out what you don't need, it's going to be a much more useful shape. That's another example of something we could do. Suppose you could make like a simple barbell. So I could draw a circle. Cool shortcut, by the way. If you want to make a duplicate of an object, just hold down Alt or Option as you move it. So if you hold down Option or Alt and move an object, it will move a copy rather than the original. Let's put a rectangle between the two. I'm just going to make all these shapes different colors so you can see how it all comes together. So then we could select those three shapes, get our Shape Builder tool, and let's add all those areas together. And there's your barbell. Now, that's probably giving you a hint as to how I created that spanner shape. So if you look at this carefully, you can see there's some sort of rectangular bar joining those areas together. You can see what looks to be a circle at each end. And you can also see there's, well, it's hard to tell exactly what that shape might be, but it looks like it might be part of a hexagon maybe. That's creating that area there. So these give us the basics that we need to construct an object like this. So we can use our rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, to draw sort of like the rectangular bar between them. We could use our ellipse tool to draw the circular part at each end. Drawn one, I'm just going to grab that, hold down Option or Alt, and drag that down. So I make a duplicate of that. And then yeah, for this part of the spanner here, I'm going to get my polygon tool. Let's click once to make sure we're drawing a six-sided shape, which we are. Oops, it's quite large. So I'll use my black arrow to scale that down. And I'm just going to rotate that through 90 degrees. So I'm rotating, but I'm just going to hold down Shift as I do to get that 90-degree rotation. And that's pretty close. Should go a bit deeper. Now you can see when I get this hexagon down roughly where I want it, it doesn't quite cover all of the circle, so I wouldn't be able to cut these bits out. So I'm going to get my direct selection tool, the white arrow, and I'm just going to grab that point and this point and that point just to extend them up, so it's basically covering that circle entirely. And we'll make another one of those, duplicate it downwards. So I was just holding down Option, whoops, to duplicate that. Like so. So you can see now I have, what have we got there, 5 overlapping shapes. And if you So look closely, you can kind of make out the spanner shape in there. Just for interest, I'm going to remove the fill from all of those objects and just put a stroke color on. So you can see, I guess, sort of the heightened level of complexity of that object that we have there. Undo that one. So now I'm going to select all of those objects, all 5 of them. So again, using the selection tool, empty area of the screen, we grab all of them. And then we can use the shape builder, Shift M. And it doesn't matter how you do this. Personally, I sort of go for like a subtract and then add. So I subtract all the stuff I don't need, and then I add together all the stuff I'm left with. So holding down Option when I'm using the shape builder allows me to subtract. And I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. Up here, I don't need those bits. And now I'm left with everything I do need. So letting go of Option so that I can add, I'm just going to click and drag between these areas to add them all together. And once all is said and done, I have one single shape, which can be treated like any other shape in Illustrator. So I can rotate that around. If need be, I can grab the points of that shape and make modifications to them. But yeah, made a little spanner tool there. So you can see it's a complex shape, but it has very easy foundations. It's just circles and rectangles and basic shapes there. But this is how you start to build up these more complex objects in Illustrator. To sort of bring that all home, this is getting closer to what you guys will be doing. This is an example of me trying to create a letter form using some basic shapes. So what I have here is a bunch of overlapping rectangles. Let me just remove the white fill there. So we've got like a rectangle across here, a couple of rectangles at the end, and one at the bottom just to help me create some serifs on this letter form. These circles here, I don't actually need at all for their shape, but by creating a circle which touches these rectangles here, I'm creating that area in there, which is going to help me create a bracketed serif for this character. So anyway, let's put this all together. Let me just make all of these shapes different colors again. This is something you don't have to do. I find for demonstration purposes it helps to make shapes different colors just so you can see what's being subtracted and what's being added to the object. Sorry, bear with me. Cool. So those are all the shapes we have. So I'm going to select all of those using the black arrow. And then we'll get the shape builder, Shift M, and then we'll start assembling this. So this is a little bit different. I want this area in here. You can see even though it's not made by an overlapping shape, it's a space that is created by the shapes you have selected, so we can still access this. So I'm going to add these bits together. You see we get that nice curved bit in there. And I'm going to hold down Option and click on that circle to remove it. Don't need that anymore. Same thing here. We'll add all these bits together, so I'm not holding down Option there. Now I'll hold down Option to remove that circle. Then we'll add them together, add that together. Going down here, we'll add all these bits together. We will add these little parts here. And then we will Option click with the shape builder to remove those circles. And then I might just change the fill color of that to black with no outline. And you can see we're starting to make some letter forms. So we're starting to approach what we need to do for this project. So this is some firepower to get you started. The letter forms that you photographed are probably not all as straightforward as this. You might not be able to create a lot of your letter forms using just basic shapes. So what we'll look at in the next video is how you can use the pen tool to create more organic shapes.